It's Enrico Palazzo!
Utah, give me 2.
Palazzo!
Hey, whoa, Robbie, you're animated.
I wish.
Welcome everyone to your first live Prospects Big Three Next Three of the year. My name is Benjamin Chase, and I'm here with my man Robbie Baseball.
Good evening, everybody, and happy podcast listener. Also,
yeah, there we go. So tonight we are going to cover the Kansas City Royals, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Minnesota Twins, not necessarily in that order. So, Robbie, any specific things about these three teams before we get started that you kind of noticed as you looked at them?
last year I had really high hopes for Angels prospects. I was insulted that we had to cover the Royals for this because their prospects were catchers predominantly, so I had to find other position players or pitchers, including Matt Sauer, who I put on their list. And the Twins are legit with prospects. So they were last year, they are this year. So this year I'm much happier to be covering KC. The trio of these teams is just solid. I'm happy with that. So
yeah. And so let's get started with Kansas City, since you mentioned them. Last year, Robbie, who did you have in your big three for the Kansas City Royals?
Well, at the 2-minute mark, Ben, I will talk about who I had for KC last year. In my big three, am I only going to give my big three, or am I giving them all? What are we doing here?
Well, let's start with, we'll do big three, each of us. And
yeah, okay.
Old
my big
and new
three
and
last year,
yeah.
Matt Sauer, Frankie Mazzucato, and Gavin Cross. Gavin Cross, an outfielder, Sauer and Mazzucato pitchers. 25-year-old Sauer was a Rule 5 pick. Mazzucato was a 2021 first-round pick who was at high A last year, and Gavin Cross was a Double-A guy who was really good until 2023. And when we get to talking about my next three this year, you will not hear Gavin Cross in the big three here. So, yeah. Ben, what about you?
Last year, I also had Mazzucato, but I had Caden Wallace and Mason Burnett.
Okay.
One of those, unfortunately, or fortunately, or however you want to put it, no longer with the team. But, I think they would be they would do that trade all over again, to have Lucas Erceg by trading away Mason Burnett. So
absolutely. Yeah. And even though I think KC now has signed somebody, did they sign
Carlos Estevez?
Yeah. So they signed, which regardless, if you're in save hold leagues for fantasy, this just got better, and of course, for everybody listening, the live chat is where you want to be when we are recording these ones live, because you can get in your questions. We're always up for burns also. Sync 31, I'm waiting on you to come back to this chat so we can talk, because you hated some of the rankings we had, I think, for our first base dynasty episode, and I want more of that. I am here for the hate. But Ben, my big three for this year, I will butt in and go first for KC. My big three this year: Noah Cameron, 25-year-old left-handed pitcher, changeup, fastball, curve. Sorry. There we go. I wrote my notes and then put his pitches over. Fastball, curve, changeup guy, 6'3", 220, 7th-round pick in 2021. He's a changeup starting pitcher, should see starts in 2025, and post his AAA promotion last year, he kept Kane guys, and he became harder to hit with the promotion, which is the rare thing when you go from AA to AAA. This is a control pitcher that I want in draft and hold leagues for this year. So all you psychopaths out there that play in 50-round draft leagues, draft and hold, this might be a flyer guy to take
Yeah.
who could be somewhere in the dozen rounds if it all goes well. And you got to take a chance on some of these guys. Everybody already takes the Noah Schultzes of the world way too early. Here's someone in Noah Cameron you could take very late and maybe get some luck with. Steven Zobak, a right-handed pitcher, is another one that I've got here. Fastball, slider, changeup guy. Started pro career strong in A-ball. Was bad at the end of 23 in high A, then got it back in Double-A last year. Hasn't skipped a beat. So this could be one of those gentlemen that needs to see the league he's in, things like that. Yeah, like we'll see exactly what comes out of Zobak. And then there is, of course, some truly elite talent here in 2024 first-round pick, Jack Caglione, first base. I talked about it before that I'm not quite sure how Casey's going to fit him in. You know, they got guys. They got MLBers, you know, Vinny P. They got Perez playing there somewhere, but he should be a 4-category guy. Include OBP if that's in your league.
Hey, Mike.
Kane could be an issue, but I don't know. Again, I don't know when he's going to arrive. He should play Double-A this summer. Maybe he'll play Double-A all year. And maybe 2026 is the reasonable start. Oh, Adarsh in the live chat checking in. That's right, Adarsh. We are back again. But those are my big three. They're, you know, Cameron and Zobak might not be the, you know, I'm sure they're not on your list, Ben. You picked actual prospects, but I went with some guys who I thought had a chance to under the radar do it, but are close enough in proximity that they will be in the show before we would come back to this conversation next year. So who are your big three?
Almost guaranteed that you and I would agree on Jock and not the other two that I had.
Okay, perfect. Because you must have catchers.
Because I have two catchers. Because in all seriousness, the Royals have two legit top 100 catchers in their system. Carter Jensen is kind of a back end of the top 100 guy. I've seen Blake Mitchell some places as high as the 30s. I think that's a little rich for him. But I think that they're
doing rankers. What are you doing rankers? If it's a fantasy list, stop it. Stop it.
Here's one for you. The MLB pipeline list had more catchers than they have ever had before on their list this year.
Imagine if they were bragging about it, and probably less pitchers because there's less pitchers every year.
Less pitchers, but they said that this is the third year out of 5 that they have eclipsed their previous catcher mark.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the Catcher podcast. They are getting better. They are getting more impactful in fantasy, but it's not to any big degree. Like you're still your third outfielder on your quality squad is going to produce more than your 6th through 10th best catcher in MLB.
So, yeah, Blake Mitchell, Carter Jensen, and Jack Caglione. Now, Uncle Ted has a decent question and asking why couldn't Caglione make the opening day roster for the Royals in left field, which...
Oh, you mean the MJ Melendez move him to the left field because they couldn't play the other position?
Oh, my gosh. Now, what I will say is one of the reasons that he won't, he is going to have they are committed to giving him an opportunity to pitch this year in the minor leagues, which is probably the primary reason why he will not break on the opening day roster, is they want to still give him an opportunity to pitch and kind of see if that's still something he wants to do going forward. They're open to that possibility. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why they would do that, but I think it's slowing him down. He came out, he struggled a bit in his first taste of pro ball, but anyone who watched him in the Arizona Fall League could see that this is a legit major league bat. He's figured out the zone. He's figured out how to approach all different pitch types. The big thing to wonder for me about is there's a real high swing and miss right there. That's your biggest red flag with Caglione.
Yes, absolutely. And again, because they don't need to rush him, it's not like that's the gaping hole in KC is first or left field. You fill left field with guys. Like we keep seeing teams do it over. Just somebody plays it. If Michael Massey is going to be your second baseman and your 8 or 9 hitter, then you need somebody with some offensive pop. It might make more sense to maybe look for not necessarily, your last year's first round draft pick, but to look for somebody that you can sign that can provide some more stable offensive ability. But maybe they think highly of Massey. And
Well, and
they
maybe
think he can be better.
That's why they got Jonathan India. So
right. Yeah.
And
then what are they going to do? Because India's potentially DH. Maybe Massey moves. Maybe India moves. Like, we don't know what the move's going to be. Just there's veteran pieces that'll be going around there. And in a perfect world, you go back to MLB days of suppressing your prospects until they make sense for you, instead of forcing your prospects, as we've seen with some teams, not everybody, but forcing your prospects to come up and make it happen. And when they don't, our whole world gets torn upside down. Very much like KC did to me last year with my next 3. Here at the 11-minute mark, boom, nailed it. So my next 3 from last year, to summarize, I had Javier Vaz, who's a second base left fielder. I had Ramon Ramirez as a catcher that I thought was interesting.
Another catcher.
Catcher. And I had Luca Tresh, who was more of a long shot catcher, 17th round in 2021. He had been good and had an ugly. This is how bad it was with KC, Ben. I was looking at BABIP of catchers to try to make a case for someone to be good, and that's what I came up with Luca Tresh, was that he had a 259 BABIP, and when he improved upon that, that would boost the ugly numbers. I didn't even look to see where he was this year. I don't care. I didn't want anything to do with it, because I had more fun, exciting players to talk about. But who were your next 3 for KC 1 year ago when we were having this conversation?
Last year, I had their big J2 signing of the year last year. Yandel Ricardo.
Okay.
And then I had Blake Mitchell as one of my next big 3s. And then I had Anthony Veneziano to be a solid lefty pen guy, which he did get 12 games in the bigs last year. So he did something. It's just that 10 of them.
What was the name? You said
Anthony
Mangio.
Yeah. Anthony Veneziano. Okay. And ended up, but 10 of his games were with the Miami Marlins, not with the Kansas City Royals, because they waived him. So he pitched in September for Miami and got into 10 games. 6'5" lefty, always a profile for Robbie's.
Yeah,
interests.
I'm listening. But Casey also rolled a ton of guys through last year, which is good. I always like when they bring guys up and give them opportunity. Who the heck was it last year? Like McMillan, I think, was that one of their arms that was supposed to do stuff? And MacArthur or something like that. They had 2 guys, James
MacArthur and John McMillan. Yep.
And those were the popular ones that I was like, I'm going to stay away from them because they're almost like MLB type lock things. So Jamie M here in the chat is asking, are we? Yeah, I assume you guys are in dynasty leagues. Obviously, it's what I live, breathe, and desire to be in. The guys we're mentioning tonight, are they guys to think about in a 5-round draft? Not yet. I haven't said a name. Like Jack Caglione, sure. But if you're looking for dynasty and it's only 5 rounds, I think you could really certainly look for near MLB types or the superstars of the future. You don't, if it's only 5 rounds, you don't want to go getting middling guys. That's what your waiver wire's for in those types of dynasty leagues. So I'm curious, what size league are you in, Jamie, for dynasty that only has a 5-round draft? It sounds boring.
Well, a lot of your dynasties have a drop 5, and then that's how you have your first year player every year. Yeah,
gotcha.
So it could be your most recent draft, your most recent IFA guys, but it also could be any prospect that's jumped up and it doesn't happen to be owned.
Right.
So anything. There aren't very many guys on here that I wouldn't feel comfortable in a first year player draft 5 round. in my big three, not in my next three though.
Yeah.
And part of that is the Royals system too. The Royals, what they have done works really well for them, but it's not all that attractive as far as fantasy goes because it's not big upside. And look at their rotation last year and you'll see what I'm talking about. You know, the Michael
Great
Wakas, the Seth Lugos, those type of guys were very successful for them last year.
And it's the first year in 4 or 5 years that they've actually done that, because they've been trying to roll out guys that they drafted in like 18, 19, as I had called them, the KC6, that did not work. And the only one of those 6 that hasn't debuted is Asa Lacy, which let's not talk about that one. But Ben, I'll keep us on track because we got lots to talk about still. So for the next 3, I've got Gavin Cross, 23-year-old outfielder, maybe a monster in KC come 2027, and he was a 2022 first-round pick.
Which, man, that's frustrating for a college first-round pick.
Yes, and I am not putting a rush with Kansas City here, and that's why I'm saying he could be up, but he won't, I think, officially be like arrived, and that guy 2027 is the year for me. Carter Jensen, he could be all categories, but there's no rush. There is no rush to move him up. That's why he's there. And then I do have my project here, David Shields. You'll all be shocked to know that this is a lefty pitcher, 6'2", 210, second-round pick last year. Project to be sure, potential to the moon. No need to rush him in KC. The theme is KC, like our barbecue, we're taking our time. We are slowly cooking these guys. His control is his asset. He can repeat his delivery. He is why they say high schoolers are projectable. So I've got Gavin Cross, Carter Jensen, and David Shields. And of these, I would say, Jamie, based on the information you are giving us here as far as like what you're looking for, I wouldn't worry about any of the KC guys not named Jack Caglione that we mentioned yet. Although I love Shields, you need him in. You don't want him until you're in deeper leagues.
Yep. And I have him on my next 3 as well. And then I also kind of went down a route that KC's been going down. Blake Walters. What was he? 2023 second round pick out of high school. 6'4" righty. Very solid raw stuff. But right now, from what I see, there's either a future reliever or a guy who probably is a 3-4 sort of guy, a workhorse guy, if all goes well. Otherwise, he's that kind of that 7th inning relief guy. But then the other one I have is Drew Beam, righty out of Tennessee that was picked in the 3rd round this year. I really, really liked. I really liked what he could do on the mound, and then he came out and had kind of a meh year. I mean, he won a national championship, but 99 strikeouts and 102 innings really doesn't, to me, emulate what this guy could do. But I think as a major leaguer, this is another middle of the rotation, back of the rotation type of guy. This isn't a front guy. This is a Seth Lugo type. This is that type of a pitcher. I have on my others to note, that's the type of guys I have down here, is that they have a lot of that in their system. The Steven Zobacks, the Noah Camerons, you mentioned those guys already. Those are all, it's kind of that back end type of arm that they really do a nice job of making. But they have some upside guys beyond that. We both mentioned Mazzucato, but he didn't make either one of our lists this year, despite having a career best 5.5 walks per 9. There's a reason that boy is not on our list.
I was going to say it's just the thing of the guy going the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
And what was the Sam Carlson? Is that the right guy?
Yeah.
With Seattle, who had injury issues, and then when healthy was never able to perform.
Yep.
But once upon a time, this was going to be a guy. But yeah.
And then just for some other names here, Hero Wyatt. If you don't know that name, get to know that name. 3rd rounder out in 23, got to A-ball this is a potential closer type if starting doesn't work, but has, I'd say, a little bit above average control. And that has allowed him at the A-ball level to really show out well. He needs a third pitch, but control of that fastball slider is going to allow him to do some fun things. Ben Kudrna, their second rounder in 2021. What? He is absolutely one of those guys that could be a little bit more, but as in, this is guy who could be a mid-rotation guy, not a. I don't see him as a frontline guy, but he is one of those rare guys in Kansas City system who could project as a 3, not a 4. And just for some fun names on the hitting side, Callan Moss, Callan. He was an undrafted free agent last year, plays first base, and was only in single A coming out of college. So, there's he's a lot older than his competition sort of thing, but 339, 488, 452 line. And when you watch him, he spit on a lot last year. Just let it go by. Was just fine with that. And one last, okay.
Before we lose this, we can't move off of it. Everybody pause. Don't worry, everyone. This will be worth it. Sorry, you were saying, oh my God, where did it go? Sorry, you were saying that he spit on it?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, we made the clip shorter, but it's still there. It's still there in spirit, everybody. I stopped the podcast just to start it all over again. You're welcome.
They do have 2 other hitters to bring up here. They have potentially their next Terrence Gore in Asbel Gonzalez. He was their 2023 signee from Venezuela. He actually finished out his age 18 season in Double-A, but he was only up there because that guy can freaking fly. Right. And it's allowed him to have decent BABIPs so far, but there is just not power at all really there. The other one,
and we know that always fades out as they get higher up, unless they are legitimately put in late in games.
Unless he is legit a Terrence Gore type. And so if you can do that elite defense and elite running, there could be a major league job for you, especially in September, October every year. But then Spencer Nevins, is 23, 5th round guy from Missouri State. Missouri State has a pretty solid track record for those who are not aware, that non-SEC school, but they really do a nice job producing pro players. Kind of a compact frame. I think he's like 5'10 and like 220. So kind of a put together in a short frame, but 21 dingers in high A this last year. And when you look at it, it's a really short, quick swing. I think that there could be more here. It's just a matter of, is there going to be big league power when he gets there? Because right now, I think this could be a guy who hits 20 home runs in the minors and gets up to Kansas City and hits 40 doubles. But I don't know what with that big outfield, but I don't know what he does for over the fence power. It's not a holy crap, he put a charge in that when he gets a home run. It's, well, that was well struck, but it was well struck on a line and happened to get over the fence, so but a guy who, like I said, he's put together 21 homers in high A should certainly be on at least your radar.
Right. Yeah. And if he was to have a dip in this year or at the next level or 2 levels up, then just sign him up for the Daniel Murphy School of Launch Angle.
Yeah, there you go.
See if he can keep that going. So let's move away from KC because they got too much of our time tonight. And let's move to Minnesota, who, I mean, really, I'm only here for the Angels. I just want to get through this, and I am halfway to my goal of finishing these 2 organizations that I don't care about. And that's because no one else likes the Angels, so I decided I will. And that happened a year ago, everybody. But Minnesota, Ben, last year with Minnesota, my big 3, I mean, I got a whiff on here, but I don't think that was my fault or anybody else's that picked him. I had Gabriel Gonzalez as my top dog.
Yeah.
And he was coming over from Seattle. He had an excellent 2023 season. I even watched him play last year in A-ball when I went and watched the Belote Sky Cart play. And the other two guys, Brooks Lee, debuted, and Emmanuel Rodriguez, cusp guy.
Yeah.
So those were my big three from last year. Who did you have last year?
I had two of those three. I had Rodriguez and Lee, and then I had already jumped the young man, Mr. Walter Jenkins, all the way up there.
Yes.
Walker Jenkins all the way up there. And so and feel very good about my three there with Lee, Rodriguez, and Jenkins last year.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the results, I felt Gabriel Gonzalez was a very good guy to put in because I thought he was going to be moving up, and he did not. And he had 300 and whatever at bats. He did have an injury last year, I believe. I think I had seen him right after he came off the IL, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he didn't take a forward step. So this year, maybe he'll get back. If not, wallow out, and that's going to suck. But my big three for Minnesota this year are, just got to write that timestamp. I got Luke Keeschel, who's an outfielder, or maybe he's a corner infielder. We don't know. He could do anything. He's 22. I've got Walker Jenkins, the 19-year-old. I'm not calling him a phenom. Don't you do it either. 19-year-old, very good baseballer. And Emmanuel Rodriguez, who is now knocking. Injuries clouded the 24 line, but the core of an all-star is there. 20 home run, 20 stolen bases, high OBP. That is your official Robbie Baseball scouting report on him. So those are my three. I honestly don't have much to say about the others. We know Jenkins is a top-rated guy. I don't have him. I really consider proximity when I do our big three, and that's where I don't see him flying up. I mean, I could be wrong, right? Nobody knew how quickly Soto was coming up. But
I think he is that guy. I think
he's that exception.
I think it would not surprise me this year if they'll need to see what he can do in spring, but it would not surprise me if Walker Jenkins opens the year in AAA.
Even though he's never shaved.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Not for a lack of desire.
But yeah, no. And somebody asked a Twins podcast recently, when do we end up seeing Jenkins, Rodriguez, and Keeschel in the same lineup? And, thinking that somebody was going to say, well, if all goes well, you won't really, because Rodriguez will make his way to the majors before then. Keeschel is coming back from Tommy John. So if Keeschel could play second base right now, he would be the penciled in opening day second baseman because he's that kind of a hitter. But right now, there's a lot of questions on defense that he's got to answer. But yeah, I think there's a really good chance that opening day you see all three of them at AAA. And Hollis Dillon says that Jenkins' soft tissue recurring injuries at such a young age are so alarming. Yes and no. I think for those who follow the ESPN family of networks, Stefan Yabel used to say that soft tissue injuries are soft tissue injuries. And they're one, and then if you take care and you heal from one, the next one is a totally different injury, has nothing to do with the previous one. That is, there are certain joints that it's a difference, but the soft tissue ones like that she says that I will never believe that. It's one of those things that somebody somewhere put out one time because one particular player had a whole bunch of thigh bruise or thigh issues or whatever. And suddenly everybody ran with that. So,
well, that goes back to, oh my goodness, was it 2019, 2018, the blisters when pitchers were getting blisters, right? It was a huge thing. And I remember Brock Burke was my prospect case where I think it was twice in a year He got shut down as a prospect pitcher. He's now with the Angels, former Ranger, and I believe he was with another organization too. He wasn't able to make it click as a starter, which just means that in 4 years, all of a sudden, whoever he's with will make him a starter again, because that's the new thing, a la Aaron Hicks and Reynaldo Lopez. But it was something that people kind of went with. Now, I've also heard the idea of, as long as a player's not getting the same injury, it's not a big deal. As long as it's not related to conditioning, it's not a big deal. It's all up to each player. So Hollis Dillon, which I assume is your band name, because if it's not, it should be.
It should be. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you're concerned with the soft tissue, I would say play the spoons on your knee. I think there's something here, Hollis, is what I'm saying. But yeah, it's a fair point. Again, like you said, Ben, if it's healed properly, it shouldn't just repeat itself. But if maybe it's something he's doing in practice, maybe somebody does training, maybe there's just an issue beyond that is not the big one there. But okay, next three from last year, Ben, with Minnesota. I was Brandon Winokur, Marco Rea, and I had Jenkins here.
Okay. And I had Gabriel Gonzalez and Rea, and then I had David Festa on here.
Okay.
With in parentheses, keep an eye on Connor Prelip.
Okay. I do kind of remember our talk last year with this, because you talked Festa as I don't know if it was a guy to dream on, but you talked certainly positively about the idea here.
And honestly, if you would have told me that David Festa put up the numbers that Zebby Matthews did last year in the minors, I would have absolutely been, that was the type of thing I thought, is that he was going to be this elite control guy that was going to whisk his way to the majors based on that elite control. And he did get to the majors, and Festa's control was not at that level in the majors, unfortunately. It was more control than command, and found out that balls go far when you are aiming into the strike zone, but you don't find your particular part of the strike zone. That said, 77 strikeouts in 64 innings for Festa. So it wasn't a total loss of a year.
Right, you're not walking away from him at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, big 6'6" lanky righty. If he has that frame all working together and going towards the plate together, that's enough of a challenge for a 6'6" arms and legs sort of guy. He has that part down. Now it's just a matter of, you need to be hitting a spot rather than just trying to get it into the square. So,
yep. So for my next three for this year, and I'll say mine, you say yours, we can circle back.
Manifesting his success.
Ty popping in with the manifesta. We would love to manifest some success here. Charlie Soto is one of my guys for the next three with Minnesota right now. He is a right-handed pitcher. I've got Eduardo Beltre. I have second base (?), an 18-year-old, and then Billy Amick, who was a recent draftee. Soto, I've got his thing here, was 23 collected. Oh, he was the 34th overall pick. Sorry, that's what I was struggling with there. And for Beltre, I like that for Minnesota and Minnesota only, I didn't put all my players on my spreadsheet. For some reason, with Minnesota, I just didn't care to. I didn't. So he was a 24 second-round pick this past year. Yeah, there we go. And then Beltre, where the heck are you here?
He was 2024 IFA guy.
Thank you. Yeah, and, so last year, international class, and he did the baseball very well.
Yeah.
11 home runs is why he's on my list, with 10 stolen bases and 144 at-bats in Dominican. OPS, you're wondering? 1071. So welcome to the hype train.
One of the comments I got is that this is as close to looking like Emmanuel Rodriguez without being Emmanuel Rodriguez as you could do in your debut, which from a Twins guy, that was a pretty impressive thing to say, from someone who saw him play and saw Rodriguez when Rodriguez was down there. But yeah, so I have Soto on mine as well. I have Dasan Hill, one of their 24 draftees. High school arm, probably not someone you really need to worry about too much for another year or two. But the other one is kind of a fun name, and that's Peyton Eels.
That's a fun name.
It is a fun name, Eeles. And Peyton was a guy that I believe did not get drafted at all. No, he was a 5-year college guy.
3 teams last year. Oh, Ben, you found a gem, baby.
Oh yeah, he went to indie ball in 23 after not getting drafted. Went back to indie ball because nobody was still interested this year. And then the Twins found him, and he did nothing but hit. But I mean, not just hit, 12 home runs, 41 stolen bases, and then a 307, 435, 497 line. I mean, this guy did the baseball very, very well last year.
Yeah.
That said, I know that my 13-year-old daughter is taller than him already. I think she may outweigh him. And that's she is a wrestler. Her weight is posted. I can, talk about my daughter's weight. So, this is not a question, not a big secret or anything, but he's a small guy. 5'5", he's listed at 180. I would say he's slimmed down from that even. So a 5'5", 180 guy, you got to do a lot of things perfectly to make it work at the big league level. But that said, so far, he did a lot of those things very, very well this year. And made it all the way to AAA, spent most of his year in AAA. So he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on to see if last year was just a mirage or if that's who he truly is.
And in my deepest dynasty league, he is rostered. And just to show the astuteness, the person who rostered him, or the team that rostered him, it's 2 dudes that run it, won the league last year in a league where we had teams spending $500 of real American money. They had spent somewhere around, I think, $160, $170 on their team. So they draft well, they develop well, and they find guys like Peyton Eels. Mm-hmm. So if you're in those deep leagues, that's a guy. Ben, who else within Minnesota?
So there really isn't another guy that I'd like. Well, okay.
Diego Cartilla, their newest rival. He's a catcher, everybody. Don't worry about it.
Yasser, yeah, and definitely don't worry about it in fantasy. Yasser Mercedes was kind of their big guy in 2022 in IFA.
Yep.
He struggled in his first go round in the Florida Complex League, but this last year bounced back and really showed off some of that athleticism. Still a lot of raw there. But that's probably the only other hitter that I would want to mention. The Twins are absolutely loaded in arms. Prelip really bounced back well. This is a guy who could have been a top 10 pick overall, but then had Tommy John. Limited 2024 innings is what I have written down here, but a 41-7 K to walk in 23 1/3 innings. 41 strikeouts in 23 1/3 innings. The stuff is absolutely fun to watch from the left side. Andrew Morris, 4th round pick out of Texas Tech in 2022. Really good fastball slider, controls the crap out of him. Not sure if there's another pitch enough to have him be a starter long term. Corey Lewis is another name that a lot of folks know because he's a Santa Barbara guy, and anytime one of those guys starts to do well, everyone thinks he's going to be, the next Bieber. But he jumped 4 levels last year. Corey Lewis did. And in combined, he had 92 strikeouts in 79 innings and a 2.51 ERA. It's a very solid arm there. And then the final guy I'll mention is kind of a dart throw, Christian McLeod, lefty, 2021 5th round pick out of Mississippi State. Got injured in college and then really kind of worked through it for a couple of years, but it just wasn't right. Finally had Tommy John. And last year was his first full season since the Tommy John, and he got all the way up to AAA. I don't like the arm motion. It looks like, I mean, for those who remember him, Tommy Hansen's arm motion, that punchy get up to the top, and it's like a punch forward instead of a arm throw. It works for some guys, but it always looks to me like that's just going to hurt your arm long term. But somehow out of that arm motion, he has one of the prettiest lefty curves in the minor leagues right now, which makes it even more ridiculous to try and hit because of the way that his arm comes through. So, but those are the guys I have on the Twins that are our extras.
Yeah, a couple others of note would be the Culpeppers. You've
Oh,
got
yeah. Yep.
Kalen and CJ.
Yep.
CJ, a pitcher in Double-A now. Kalen, a first-round pick last year, I believe.
Yep.
Shortstop. And then the other one, Kyle DeBarge, who was a second-round pick.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Just like guys to know. But you talked
Yeah.
about short man syndrome. At A-ball, he didn't take off, but he held his own. I would say that in 102 at bats, having a 322 OBP is holding your own in that sense. But first pro home run, 15 stolen bases, but the line overall isn't attractive. So we'll see. I assume he'd be back with the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles to start 25, and we'll see where he goes from there. But enough of all of these insignificant MLB teams. Let's get to one of the heavy hitters. That's right, everybody. We're going to LA Angels, that is.
And you got to talk about them now because more than likely
they'll
anybody
be
we're talking about here, they'll be in the major leagues next year.
There is no way that on my list that 4 of these 6 will not be in the show by the All-Star break. Uncle Ted says, I look at the Angels lineup trying to find who is Ron Washington's project player. He always has a project player, Mickey Moniak and Josh Hamilton, both ex-first round lefties, Gold Glove, and wheels. Joe Adele. Like most of the Angels are projects in the sense that they need a thing. So
the guy, and I don't know, maybe I'll wait because maybe you'll mention him, but I have an idea for my guy on that list, but we'll see if either one of us brings him up because he's still technically prospect eligible. So
okay, so I'm interested in that. We'll go to it. So Ben, last year your big 3, who'd you have?
My big 3 last year, I had Nolan Shanwell, which, that worked out okay.
Yeah.
Sam Bachman, who he's no longer rookie eligible, but maybe not as well. And Caden Dana, who just basically kind of had about as good a pitching season as you could have in the minors and did get to the majors. So that might be one of my better big 3s as far as an organization and hitting their top 3 guys.
Yeah. 2 of your 3 graduated. Bachman by days, right? I think that's what he did. But he didn't play in MLB last year, did he?
Yeah, where's he at?
He did. I didn't think he did. I thought he was still technically rookie eligible, but
maybe I'm mistaken.
The only thing I read about him was that they're going to bring him back and try to start him again, not put him in the pen. So, but either way, I had Bachman on my next 3 last year because I believe my note on him was that I think it's a slow road back. But I had Dana as well, which, I mean, how could we – that worked out perfect, as you mentioned. Shanwell as well, and then I had Kyron Paris. And if you want to talk about things that should go right, Kyron Paris is need a new organization guy because there's skills there, but it's Double-A to MLB, then back down, then back up to MLB from Double-A. He needs a little bit more. He needs a better environment, I guess, because he is not a from college ready guy. He's been brought up. It's been it's taken a while. He's obviously had enough at bats now that we can see it's not going well on the show, but he's not getting the AAA time because the Angels tend to put guys at AAA that they're not as concerned with developing. So that's an issue that I have with them. But my big 3 this year, it starts again with Caden Dana because, he's back, baby. He's still on the list because he didn't leave it. He only had a couple starts last year. Of course, one of his starts I put him in. I mentioned on the podcast. It was in
that did not go so well.
Yeah, it was a Sunday start. I really needed to go well. It really did not, and then I lost that week. And whatever, that things happen. And then Christian Moore, who 2024 first round draft pick. He's the kind of guy who, when he walks in a room, his dick has already been there. If you know what I'm saying, Ben.
The phrasing is well done. So. Yeah.
He just looks like he is ready to play MLB. He had that hot start, and as we talked about, Ben, credit to you, you said, hey, caution on the hot start because this is how he did it, and you kind of broke it down for us last year.
Mm-hmm.
But long term, I think Christian Moore is going to be a very good fit at second base, I think, with the Angels, which really helps them fill in the infield. I don't know that he's got the defensive arm to be third base where they could, maybe use somebody. I don't know, Anthony Rendon, Renaissance, anyone. And then my third guy is Garrett McDaniels. And this was a Rule 5 pick because I like to take these guys every so often. Let me see if I can find him now that I see. So he's the other guy that I guess I didn't keep his info on. But McDaniels, I'm trying to think, where the hell did he come over from also? Where are you, McDaniels? Well, Ben, why don't we circle back on McDaniels? No, let's not. So he's a 25-year-old lefty.
From the Dodgers.
Was he the
or
Dodgers?
was with the Dodgers.
Okay, he was originally drafted in 2018 by Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the opportunity
that is
for me.
An unfortunate school. PD Academy. PEEDEE Academy.
No, I think going to P. Diddy Academy is perfect. I would go there. We should all go there. Yeah.
No.
You have class trips. Spring break is Epstein Island. It's a whole vibe. But so anyway, back on McDaniel last year, and the reason why he was taken, 3 levels for the guy, single or whatever, low A, high A, and then double A, 73 and a third innings, 84 Ks. As he went up, as we mentioned with somebody else on tonight's show, the higher the level, the harder he became to hit. Now, he finished double A with 3 innings, so that's, you could say that doesn't really matter, but still, you could get blown up in that. Only gave up 3 home runs in those innings. Okay control. The whip was 127, not perfect, but I think what I like about him is opportunity, and that's because with the Angels, although I believe they now have 3 lefties, Jose Suarez is like their SP 7/8 on the depth chart. He is one of their lefties too. I think McDaniel could kind of creep up in importance within their bullpen because they'll be kind of fluid with it. They're not signing veterans and filling it up. So assuming he breaks camp with the team, I think he'll stick around. And I like this as a, super low risk guy who could become a successful MLB reliever. He might not be a closer. If you're looking for a closer, he's not. Take him off your consideration. But if you're in a save hold league, points leagues with a bunch of RP spots, he could be a guy who starts the year as your final addition, and then you watch what you do. I mean, very much like you would with any Rule 5 pick. Mitch Spence last year, same deal. Projects that you could see being successful, and then Mitch Spence ended up being successful. So I think McDaniel's, not to the sense of starting, but to the sense of getting to be a pitcher this year, and then ideally the Angels might be able to see, hey, we might want to stretch him. We want to see what that talent can really do. I like him as my guy. So Ben, who do you have as your big 3 for the Angels for 2025?
So I have Dana and Moore as well. The other one I have is George Clausen. And
yeah,
got
excellent.
Acquired. I mean, and if there's anyone that I ride harder than a Braves prospect, it's a prospect for any team who happened to have come out of the University of Minnesota. And that is, my alma mater. And so therefore I really pump any of those guys. Clausen was one of those guys who came into the pre-draft thing that they do now for MLB.
Like the combine?
Yeah, their combine, it's like a weekend though, instead of just like a few tests, but they kind of have a few. He wasn't part of the draft league, but they'll do things where there's just kind of, what can you throw? What can you, but it's a weekend of doing that, not just let's go out, max out your arm one time and blow the crap out of it. But he was one who turned a lot of heads because he was kind of consistently sitting at 98 with a really good slider, and everyone kind of went, oh, well, where the hell did that come from? Well, he always had that. He had really good strikeout stuff. He just had no idea where the hell the ball was going. So the Phillies worked with him on figuring that part out, and he just kind of exploded up the system last year and ended up becoming a part of their trade, or part of a trade, and was finished the season with 7 games in Double-A. But overall, 93 innings, 135 strikeouts, 3.10 ERA, 118 WHIP. That's just a very solid season. But the overall, there's big time arm stuff here, and it's just a matter of, I don't like taking a look at too many guys who are. I mean, they are in the Southern League, but Rocket City is not a great location to determine how great a pitcher is. So that's why when Dana was so stinking good there, that really turned my head, because that's usually not a great place to hit. It's kind of the launching pad of the Southern League. Southern League typically has a lot of tough places to hit, but Rocket City is kind of more of an average place to hit, and he struggled at that level. Now, granted, this was a guy who his previous high in innings for a season was 56. And at that point, he was already at 70-something innings, and he finished with 93 on the year. So he was probably running on some fumes at that point of the season, but he got there. He got to Double-A. Let's see what he can do this next year. And I would guess going to start at Double-A, but this is a guy, and we know with the Angels, if you're in Double-A, you're a step away from the major leagues. So if he can show it, he's going to get every chance to come up to the big league rotation. So
I'm with you on that. So 2024 next 3, I had hold on, everybody. Hold on. Let me timestamp it.
52 on the nose.
Minutes. I had Sam Bachman, who we've discussed and won't again. David Calabrese, who I've just personally been trying to promote, the Canadian, and hasn't fallen off a cliff. Like him and Petey Halpin with Cleveland, I've been watching their progression. Since
very similar players too.
Yes. Halpin got on the 40-man. Calabrese did not, and then I had Barrett Kent on mine as well, the righty, who was an 8th-round pick in 2023. $1 million signing bonus, which initially alerted me to why did this guy get $1 million, and then you go and do the dive on him. You're like, oh, okay, arm stuff, and then I may or may not bring him up when we talk about it again in a minute. So, yeah. Ben, who did you have in your next 3 last year?
Well, I had Kent. I also had Nelson Rada, who was the youngest player on opening day in Double-A. And I had Joshua Lugo, who was their big international signing last year and played his first year. Now he is actually on the fringe of I have now listened to 2 different podcasts about a top 100 list, and he is brought up in their just missed.
Interesting.
So that's one of those that when I hear a name once in that, it's like, oh, okay. But when you hear a name mentioned twice as the just missed on a guy who was in his first pro year last year, that really, you do kind of pay extra attention to that. And so, but anyway, that's okay. The guys I had last year.
Yeah. So this year, let me timestamp it. 53:45. Boom. Professionalism. This year, I have Felix Morabel on my list, a contact bat switch hitter. Did not get the at-bats last year, but this is somebody who I can't remember if he was 2021 J2 class. I feel like maybe that's it. I can dive into him afterwards. I had Ubaldo Soto, a right-handed pitcher, 18-year-old. Great. I think this was like Dominican League stud last year, if I'm not mistaken. And he may or may not have come over. Again, we'll circle back to that. And then I am repeating this with Barrett. Geez, Ben, is everything okay over there?
Yeah, I just apparently my recycling bin is empty. So when I
You were
drop
like, what? Barrett Kent again? He can't still be next.
I dropped something in, and apparently that empty thing just really rattles. So
Barrett Kent is now a 20-year-old. Fastball, curve, slider, changeup, 6'4". The line was not great last year. The highlighted best by 113 inning pitched and 125 Ks. He got knocked around, but he's also playing well above his age bracket. So we're going to forgive it, and we're going to go with, as Ben said with somebody else earlier, great arm stuff. We're going to give him the great arm stuff forgiveness that we're going to see him repeat and conquer the level. So, Ben, who did you have in your next three for the Angels?
So I repeated two of them. First one, Nelson Rada. Yeah, did not have an elite year by any stretch of the imagination last year in AA, but it was AA. He was 18 all year long in AA. And yes, 234, 331, 269. Nothing to write home about. Stole 35 bases. And his walk rate increased throughout the year. Right now, the bat gets completely knocked out of his hands. This is a guy who needs to run, needs to make elite contact to be that guy. And unfortunately, this year, he could not do that. There's just not enough power there for him to succeed without doing that. So, but certainly believe that he could be at AA again and trying this out again, and we could maybe see that next year. The other one that I had repeat was Joshua Lugo. Here's the line that he had, for why he might be getting some interest as a just outside the top 100 guy. Granted, this is DSL, but professional debut, 301, 370, 466. With 5 homers, 3 triples, and 11 doubles in 53 games. That'll do. And mind you, also played shortstop for almost every one of the games that he played. So that's how you get the attention of folks. But he's 6'3", 187. It's a really fast bat through the zone. I think this is a guy not at the exact same level, but there's a lot of reminds me of Marco Luciano at that same type of level and age.
Caution, everyone. Caution.
Yeah. Well,
prospectors, caution.
Luciano never recovered from some injury stuff that he went through.
Is it soft tissue related?
No, it was actually joint related for him. It was a knee issue, but Lugo, very similar with the very, very quick bat. I think that there could be something long-term very similar, but same type of issue that 6'3", 190-pound frame already at 16, 17. There's a good chance this is a future third baseman unless he really works at his conditioning, which he could, but just anyway. My third one, I went back since I had Kent last year. I went back for the who did they overpay as a high school arm later in the draft.
Yep.
And this year it is Trey Gregory Alford.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
11th round out of Colorado, which Colorado doesn't produce a ton of high school arms that get drafted, but when they do, they tend to do really, really well. I mean, we're talking like Roy Halladay, Kevin Gaussman type of guys are the Colorado guys that get picked, and
6'5", 235, and he's 18 years old.
Yeah.
My goodness.
He looks like he should not just be shaving, but he should be a twice-a-day shaver at this point. I mean, he looks like a man who is 17 in all of his videos.
Yeah,
which
he does. Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, so he's the guy that I kind of have eyes on this year for that extra, or the next big three for that high school guy that they are going to take a chance on. The guy that could
pop, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one. Rounding out other Angels, Ben, because as we know, we have to be careful because they could quickly graduate and flame out. So Nico Cavadas, who came over last year.
That's the guy I was going to mention as far as the reclamation project, because Uncle Ted was mentioning, because coming from the Red Sox had kind of given up on him. That, and he was kind of stuck in that system. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
not a great defender. So I would bet that this is a DH, but with Nolan Shanwell there, that's okay. You can play some DH and be just fine. And so I like that as a potential option. Of course, now they have Jorge Soler there, so he's going to be plugging up the DH slot whenever he's healthy. So
it doesn't get any easier for him, but yep,
but,
that is one. On the pitching side, they have Sam Aldegheri, who did pitch last year.
Yes.
He is still technically rookie eligible. They also had, I just had this guy's name up, Cole Fontenelle, who was
love
23 seventh round pick.
Yep.
And was in Double-A. A lot of the Angels prospects go to Double-A and go there quickly. That is somewhere that I mentioned David Calabrese. He's played there 2 straight years. Now, neither year has he improved upon the previous or started at a high level. But they plug the guys in there. So we'll see. And I think they signed a ton of veterans last year, just like they're doing this year, to fill in that AAA roster. So I don't have any others really to get into. If you have some,
Matthew Lugo came over with Nico Cavadas from Boston,
I guess
and
that's
moved
Guzman too, right?
But. Moved to outfield last year or 2 years ago, and that's really he was just a huge tool freak, one of those guys with all kinds of raw tools, but moving to the outfield has really allowed them to play up for him. So I don't know that he'd be a guy I'd want to look for to get me even 270 for average, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is a guy who goes 240 with 2020 for you.
Okay.
Big power and speed, but probably a low average on it. Because Britton's going to listen if he isn't.
We haven't even talked at all about a Venezuelan catcher. Oh my God.
There is a really good one. And Dario Laverde, 2022
could
signing.
pronounce it if he was here.
He's one of those guys who big arm, big raw tools behind the plate, and the offense was just kind of a hope. The power has developed. The contact has taken big strides forward. Big arm is still there. Really needs to work on some of the other stuff. But this is a guy who it would not surprise me at all if in, let's say, by the end of this year, he is in Double-A.
Gotcha.
And he's, potentially making a move for, so he's A-ball, big, strong kid. I bet you he's probably looking at the upper minors by the end of the year. Derek Clark is a really fun one. 5'9" lefty. Nothing he throws is even a 55 pitch, but he's might have 70 control and command. So he knows how to spot everything well, and that's how he's lived so far as a 5'9" lefty. Ryan Johnson is a big arm guy that they got this year from Dallas Baptist in the second round, and I want to say he went through a stretch in the minors where he threw something like 18 or 19 sliders in a row. So this is a guy who's probably going to be a 50-50 fastball slider guy, probably moving to the bullpen, but upper 90s, hard slider. So just a name to know for future stuff. And one that I think you would enjoy just because he's a lefty. My last one to mention is Sammy Natera. And Sammy went
AFL guy, right? He was.
Yes, he went to the AFL this year, but he grew up in Mexico and chose to go to college rather than going through the international signing stuff, which I thought was interesting to read about. 6'4" lefty, which there's right up Robbie's.
Yeah. I'm listening.
But he had a 90-inning season in 23 and was okay, and then just popped this year. And unfortunately, popped as he was really producing well, and then got to AFL and kept pitching the same way he was before he got hurt. 12 innings, 17 strikeouts, only 4 walks. There's something here. It might be a bullpen guy primarily, but there's definitely something here that to keep an eye on with, that kind of stuff from the left-hand side and that frame, 6'4", and he's 2 1/4, 230. There's someone to watch.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Denzer Guzman's the other one that I just briefly said, 21-year-old, probably even AA this year. Stolen base threat, solid defender, lacking power. He was a J2 guy from 2021. I believe that's his year. That's it. The Angels do have interesting AAA names right now already collecting. Evan White, that was a salary dump. They did.
Braves gave him that one.
Tim Anderson is another. Last year they loaded up with them too. So Connor Brogdon might be their AAA closer who was with Phillies for a few years. And I did have to correct myself. I believe earlier I said the blister thing, and I said that Brock Porter was my test case for it. It's Brock Burke, who is now on the Angels. That was my mistake.
And he's one of the 3 or 4 lefties that they have in their bullpen right now.
Flipping lefties. That's why I said Jose Suarez is somebody who could work their way in potentially back into the rotation, because they are one of the few teams with almost a 50% lefty bullpen. And Burke is set up according to the site I'm on now, looks like he could be their setup man. He's had no career consistency to truly earn that.
No.
It's just here on paper because Jose Culiada, I can't pronounce his name. I apologize.
Quijada or something. Quijada.
He was also slated to be that 2 years ago before he started, got injured, missed all last year. Hans Kraus is in this bullpen. There are
remember some guys' bullpens.
Yeah, as well as Ben Joyce. There's guys here that make it interesting. And then if you look at the rotation, and not that we're getting into that on Big Three next three, there's opportunity here Kikuchi, Jose Soriano, Tyler Anderson, Kyle Hendricks, Reed Detmers. There's opportunity for a lot of these AAA guys and AA guys, I should say, to get opportunity this year. Caden Dana, excuse me, Jack Kay, who did exceed rookie eligibility. Sam Bachman, who could do that as well. Dakota Hudson is down in their pen. Brett Carey is a 25-year-old drafted in 2021, who once upon a time was not really dreaming on, but you're he could be an MLBer. They did also trade away guys too that could have been things. So the Angels are a hot mess. They got bodies.
They got bodies. They don't do much to help them. They are, I think, for about 4 years running, they are the lowest cost minor league system in all of baseball. And you produce what you produce when you invest that little. That's just it. It's come on, if you want to get good things to come out of your minor league system, you put money into it. And not just scouts. You get folks a nice bed to lay in. You pay for nice or good food to have at the post-game spread, things like that.
Your investment, 100%.
Yes.
They're your investment. I mean,
Teams,
I do food for university teams that I'm working, and everybody is so budget conscious right now, terrified of going over budget. But then you get into some sort of athletic this or athletic that, roll out the red carpet, baby. These athletes need to eat, and it is a priority. And this is unpaid. These are not people the university invest in the sense that they're trying to make money off of them for gates. This isn't like American, football. This is not the same thing. The same numbers of people aren't coming out. You got certain teams that might at most draw 600 fans. And these are elite athletes, and they're doing as good or better a job than some minor league teams do, providing food and nourishment, and even just requesting things. We do breakfast things that we send off to teams when they're having their team meeting, and then we do dinner for the road team and things like that. So, you get, like you said, you
gotta take care of that.
Yeah. And then again, if you're a veteran, free agent looking to sign, minor league free agent, you're not going to a team that doesn't take care of their players or an organization that doesn't take care of their players.
Yep.
Even if there might be opportunity, you might prefer to be somewhere else. You'll find a reason why, $3,000 to $5,000 is less important to you because you'll just be spending it in clubhouse dues and things like that. So,
Yep.
But anyway, Ben, that was KC, that was Minnesota, that was LA, big three, next three.
So, Robbie, you know what happened in the course of us recording this podcast?
We got a subscriber.
We got a new subscriber.
Oh, we did?
YouTube.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So we went up 1 during the time we've been on the air here. So that's excellent. We are on our goal to get to 1,000 folks. And we laid down the gauntlet in a show that we recorded this evening on our fantasy previews that we will do something fun if we get to 1,000. We haven't figured it out what it is on the Prospect Show yet, but there could be something fun that we decide to do if and when we get to 1,000 subscribers on the Prospect Show as well. So
time of year dependent.
Yes. If we're talking during spring training, this happens, we can do some fun things. If this is not until June, well, then that changes a whole lot of our aspects. But
this is in February when we can roll around in the snow butt naked.
That is content, folks.
Or if you would like us to not do that, you could also subscribe and then you will have a voice too. So
yes.
if you're listening in a podcast form, hit us up, Palazzo Podcast on YouTube. Just subscribe. We will absolutely appreciate the heck out of it. It'll also let you know when we go live. Maybe you're sitting down one night and we happen to go live. You can put us up on the TV or on your computer. And if you've got a question, it's a great time to interact with us. You can also send your hate our way. We'll take it. Happy to have conversations, or as we have tonight through a couple of the people here, including the Hollis Dillon Band, ask questions or make a comment
absolutely.
that we can then have a conversation on. So we always appreciate that. It's great. We did have somebody who talked about Gavin Cross. I guess we forgot to mention that, looking to get himself back in game day shape because he had Lyme disease last year.
Yep.
Something to look into. So I do apologize, HD, for forgetting to mention that. Who made the comment through X, where you can find us.
I was just going to say, we did get comments from X, from Twitch, and from YouTube. So we do look at them all. We talk, we end up.
Still nothing coming from Truth Social. I'll have to double check that account.
Have to work on that.
us.
Yeah.
That is my department, obviously. Well, Ben, the next one up for us is what? It is the Yankees.
The Yankees, the A's, and the Mariners. So you have some really elite prospects. You have some prospects that, because they put on pinstripes, are going to be thought to be elite. And then you have one of the saddest franchise situations in baseball right now. So
yeah, absolutely. Embarrassing, you would think, to have a team leave a city so fast without the next city ready. But we've seen the NFL do the same thing with Oakland. So I don't know what to expect. But anyway, guys, we do appreciate you listening tonight. This was longer than intended by 13 minutes. Govier, we're so sorry. We will do better next time. Probably not. So on behalf of myself, Ben, and the Palazzo team, that is Mike VA, Sam Britton, and Captain Govier, we thank you all. And we'll see you next time.